Welcome to this demo showcasing Microsoft SharePoint Blob Storage Management enabled by Metalogic StoragePoint and protected by EMC Replication Manager. This video is one in a series as part of this EMC proven solution. In this demo, we will show the solution architecture overview and then a video of storage reclaim after StoragePoint externalization using SQL database shrink. We created a SharePoint farm with 4.3 terabyte of content databases on block tiered storage. There's also a 1 terabyte file share on file tiered storage. Metalogic StoragePoint is installed and configured in the SharePoint farm. The SharePoint blobs are then externalized with Metalogic StoragePoint. They are externalized to a lower tier of storage on VNX file. We then show that the content databases are shrunk, thus freeing up space on the higher tier of storage. The 1 terabyte file share is migrated into SharePoint, which results in metadata in SharePoint increasing due to this added content. EMC Replication Manager is then introduced to protect the block and file SharePoint content. Replication Manager uses SnapView to protect the block content and Snapshot to protect the file content. In Application Management in Central Administration, you can see a section for StoragePoint, and we can go and look at the dashboard after externalization and look inside the SharePoint farm at the content databases that have been externalized. And Metalogics will show the number of blobs externalized and the raw size of the blobs externalized and the average size for each of the content databases. This is the 200 gig content database that it's showing right now. And this is the 4 terabyte content database. We can see in the 4 terabyte database that 3.7 terabytes of blobs have been externalized. So we go to the SharePoint SQL server and we can look at the space used by each of the content databases in more detail using SP space used. And we can also see this graphically. On Content DB 150 reports, we're going to do a disk usage report. We can see the data file is using just over 90 gig, but the actual space used inside it is under 9 gig. So now we're going to shrink those database files and release unused space. And it's estimating that we can free 90% of the database space. When you shrink the database file in this way, you are only shrinking the database and not the log file. And we execute the task. So if we look at the file itself, the content DB file, we can see that it's just under 100 gig and it's still executing the shrink. And we go back, and after the shrink, it's 9 gig. Please follow this up with index defragmentation. We do the same for Content DB 250, except we shrink the database instead of the file. And we leave no space after shrinking. Normally you would leave at least 10%, but we wanted to see the maximum savings we could achieve. We go and do a report on disk usage for 200 gig Content DB. We see out of the 200 gig, only 3 gig is actually used in inside the content database. And if we go and verify that on the file system, we see that it's 200 gigs at the moment. And we see the shrink job is still executing. And we kick off a shrink database for the 4 terabyte content DB as well. After all of these database shrinks, we run index defragmentation on each of the databases. On the 250 gig content DB, we now see that the space used inside the content DB is just under 3 gigabytes, showing us quite a big space saving. And the content DB is now 3 gigs. After your content DB shrink is done, you can do an index defragmentation for each database and then shrink the volume in Windows. If you were using thin LUNs in Unisphere, you can just shrink the LUN. Or if you were using thick LUNs, you can create smaller LUNs in Unisphere, attach and format the smaller LUNs in Windows, detach the database from SQL Server, copy the data and log files, and attach the data and log files in SQL Server that you have on the smaller LUNs. Thank you for watching this video, and please watch the rest of the videos in this series. The white paper is available on PowerLink and emc.com.